Today I'm going to show you how to set up your dies in a Lyman Spar T turret press, and that's coming up next here on Jesse B Outdoors. Welcome back everybody, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment down below if you like videos like this. So, we know the Lyman Spar T is an old press here, and I picked this up from my wife's grandpa. This one is just a little bit different than most modern presses on how to set it up. So I figured I'd do a video on it showing you guys. So, let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to use our lead die set to set this up in 45 Colt. So let's get started. Now, the first thing we got to do is take the rope off of this, and if you guys are wondering why I got a rope on it, old presses like this, if you let go, they automatically go like that. So the first thing we need to do is we got to put our shell holder in. Now, unlike the new style ones here, this one, I'll zoom in here, actually has a set screw right here, and that's what holds it in. So what we got is this is completely out. So now I'm going to lower this so I can get in here. I'm going to put in my shell holder here, and then what we're going to do is just tighten this up. And it don't need to be very tight, it just needs to be snug. And once we do that, we can move on to the next step. Just snug. And what I'm going to do, because this one has that ball on the end and it doesn't get in there very good, I'm just going to turn it with the other end. And that should be all set up perfect. Let's move on to the next step. Now the next step is we're going to do our sizing die here. Normally, I decap all my brass beforehand, before I even clean my brass, so I removed the decapping die. Also note that I got the nut all the way up on top. So we're going to thread this in until it kisses the shell plate, and we're going to put the ram all the way up to do this. We're going to spin it down, and then once it touches it, that's when it'll be done. We'll just spin this down here real quick. This might take a little bit, but that's what you need to do it. Now you can see we're touching right there. Now what I do is I lower the ram, and I actually put a shell in there. And what I'm doing is I'm going to stick that up in there. That'll help hold the die and take any slack out of the threads. And then we're going to go ahead and thread this nut down on here, and we'll get this tightened up. Now on these, you don't need to get them gorilla tight. Just need to get them snug, and they'll be fine. Just like that. Snug it down. And that's all there is for doing the sizing die. Let's move on to the next one. Now the next die we're going to install is going to be our powder through expanding die. So what we're going to do here is we're going to lower this and turn the turret in either direction. It don't matter, whichever way you want to go. And we're going to start threading this in, and then I'm going to put the ram back up. What I'm doing is the expander part of this, I'm making that going to hit the top of the case mouth, so I know where it's at, which is right there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the ram. I'm going to do a half turn and then a full turn right there. We'll see where that puts us. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make the bullet fit in. Now what I have here is a Lee 255 grain bullet I cast up that's powder coated. You can see that does not fit in, so we need to flare that out a little bit more so we know where it is, so it don't shave the powder coating or the lead off. So I'm going to do another half turn, full turn, and then I'm going to do another half turn and see how close that gets us on here. Put that back up in there, flare it again, grab our bullet here, and you can see we're getting closer on that. So what I'm going to do is about another half turn. Let's see where that gets us. Now this one takes a little bit longer to set up because you got to get this flare just right. So this one, to me, takes one of the longest to set up. And now you can see that it fits right down in there perfect. That's the way we want it. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to turn it just a tad bit more. About a quarter of a turn. Try it one more time. Get the round out of here. Alright, that's where I want it right there. So now what we're going to do is like we did before. We are going to put the round back up in this. This takes any slop out of the threads. And we're going to tighten up the nut on this one. And you don't need it, just like all the other ones, you don't need this real tight, you just need it snug. They got an O-ring on the bottom that holds them in. So we'll get this threaded down by finger tight. Then we're just going to get it a little bit snug here. Nothing too crazy. Alright, just like that. So now let's move on to the next one. Now the next one we're going to do, this is going to be our bullet seating and crimp die. But I'm only going to set up the bullet seating part because we got a 4-die set and we're going to crimp on the last step. So what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to lower the ram here. And we're going to turn the turret one spot over to the next one. And we're going to start threading this in. And once you get it started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the case back up into it. And the same way with the flare, how I felt the flare hit the case mouth, now what I'm doing is I'm threading it down until I feel the crimp engage the case mouth, which is about right there. And then I'm going to back it off about a half a turn and another half of a turn for one full turn. So now what I'm going to do is hold the die body and I'm going to thread the nut down. And of course we had it threaded all the way up, that way it was out of our way. So we didn't have to worry about the nut getting in our way. We got that finger tight. Then what we're going to do is tighten this up, and once again, just want it snug right there. And then we're going to back this out. And then we're going to move on to the next one. We're going to set this bullet up here in a second, but I'm going to do that after we set up all the dies. So now we're going to set up the fourth one here, and this is the factory crimp die from Lee. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to remove the case. We're going to turn it to our last spot here on the turret. We're going to thread this down. Once again, the nut is all the way up on the die to keep it out of the way. We're going to raise our ram. And this is just like the very first full-length sizing die. Or the sizing die, I should say. We're going to thread it down till it touches the shell holder, which we're getting pretty close here. Alright, right there we're touching. And now what we're going to do is just tighten this nut down, spin it down all the way. Once again, we don't need it snug or real tight, we just need it snug. So we'll get it finger tight here. Leaving the case or leaving the ram up against it just to hold some tension on it. So now I'm going to put the shell back on it. This will get all the slop out of the threads and everything. Then we'll come over here and just snug her down. And that's all there is to setting up your dies. Now let's go back to the bullet seating die and finish setting that up. Now in this bullet here, this very top groove right here is the crimp groove. That's what we want to get our brass to, the very top of that. So I'm going to lower the ram here. We're going to put our bullet in. We're going to make sure that's sitting down in there. Now we got the stem up here on top. Let me scroll this up a little bit. Right there. Now we got our stem up here completely backed out because this is what seats the bullet. So we're going to raise the ram. Then we're going to thread this all the way down until it touches the top of the bullet, which is about right there. We're going to drop this down, and I'm going to take a big swing at it because this is a big bullet. This is another one that's going to take some time. We want to get it right to the top of that groove. So this one's going to take multiple times doing it. The closer you get, the smaller amounts you want to turn it. Like right now, we're getting very close to it. So I'm going to keep taking it out to eyeball it. And I'm just going to do a little bit more. And let's check that out here. That is just about where I want it. I'm going to get into some better light here. I'm just going to move it just a tad bit more. Not very much. Put that in there. And now you can see we are right up to the top of that crimp groove. That's where I want it. So let's move on to the next step and set up our crimp die. Now what we're going to do is turn this to our crimp die. And we got the same way. We got this backed all the way out, so it don't touch anything. We're going to put our round in there. And then we're going to thread this down until it touches the case mouth. Now what Lee says on these, if you do a half turn, right there we just hit the crimp mouth. And I've got a dot up here on top. I'm going to stand up here real quick so I can see it. They say a half turn's a light crimp and then a full turn's a heavy crimp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this, and we're going to do a half crimp. And since these are just going to be a medium powered round, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do about another quarter of a turn. Then we're going to go back up in there. We're going to crimp it. And you guys can see right there, there is our round crimp. And that is the finish round. And that's all you got to do to set up your dies. Alright, you guys can see that setup on this was pretty simple. Hopefully soon I get over my cold so I sound a little bit better. I probably sound horrible in this video. But back to the press here. The shell holder is a little bit different than a lot of newer presses. You got that set screw to hold it in instead of a spring like the newer ones. That's just something that it's not really, it's different, but it's not that hard as I showed you guys. Die setup is pretty simple, basic, just like you would do on most presses. This would work on a Lee Classic turret press. Single stage press setup is basically the same on all those. Now, the one thing that I do different than other people, and this is just personal preference depending on how you want to set them up. On the bullet seating die, I like setting the die up, and the crimp die, I like setting the die up first and then coming back and doing the bullet seating and then the crimp adjustment. Some people, when they're doing the bullet seating die, they'll go ahead and do the bullet adjustment right there, and then they'll go to the factory crimp die, get that set up, and then make that adjustment. That's just personal preference. There's no right or wrong on it, but as you guys saw, this is pretty nice, simple to set these dies up. So as always, don't forget to check the links out down below. Down there I have links to Axel Hearing Protection, Gators Eyewear, and a bunch of other companies I like dealing with. Some of them got discount codes to save you guys money. Some are affiliate accounts that do help out the channel. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment down below. We are One Nation Under God, and I'll see you all on the next one.